prepare for the next best thing. Another go at the Santa Anita Handicap. This time, they vowed, Seabiscuit would win. But as the race drew near, their confidence began to wane. Days of drenching rains turned the track to a swamp, and Seabiscuit, never at his best in the mud, was scratched from one warm-up contest after another. Finally, a restless Pollard opted to ride a race without him, climbing aboard Howard's star filly, Fairnightus, instead. It was a decision he would come to regret. Halfway around the turn, Fairnightus clipped the heels of the horse in front of her and tumbled, pitching Pollard over her head and crushing him beneath her as she thudded to the ground.
Well, that mare just fell on him. Lucky it didn't kill him. I mean, you take a horse that weighs 1,000 pounds and it lays on you a little bit, you ain't gonna last.
Pollard's diagnosis was grim. A shattered collarbone, a broken shoulder, multiple rib fractures, and serious internal injuries. The doctors said he wouldn't ride again for at least a year. The $100,000 and his chance to redeem the loss to Rosemont was gone.
During his time in the hospital, it tortured him not to be out there with the horse. This was a very unfortunate man. He was a very tormented man and was more star-crossed than any athlete I know of.
I do think that there is a real lure to living your life all the way up, which is what Hemingway said. Only bullfighters live their lives all the way up. And he meant by that every day they face death. And it does put an edge to things, you know. And I think he had to have that. That defined him. That was what he was.
3 days later, his left arm in traction. Pollard made it clear that there was only one jockey who could replace him. His old friend, George Monroe Wolfe.
They called George the Iceman because he could sit chilly on a horse as long as anybody. But I thought he was perfection in motion, really. To watch him coming down the stretch on a horse, boy, he looked beautiful to me. I don't know whether he was helping a horse, but he sure looked like it.
A great jockey is a genius. What a jockey needs to do is have supreme balance. He has to have the fingers of a great pianist in order to sense through the reins what the horse is capable of. The jockey through his knees senses what the horse is doing. The only part of the jockey that never touches anything is the part that should normally go into the saddle. When to whip, when to hold back, to go inside, to go outside, to go through an opening this big where your elbows brush the jock next to you at 40-something miles an hour and your stirrups clang against his stirrup. All of this, a 110-pound man on top of a 1,200-pound horse, it's a thing of beauty.
To be behind a horse and have all the dirt and mud and everything else in your face, going through on the inside, of course, that's dangerous. It took nerve, or else no sense. I used to say no brains, no fear. They had a joke about riders who, you know, were a little skittish, and if they'd ever be on the outside, they'd say, "Oh yes, he took the married man's route."
Off the track, a jockey's existence was marked by the constant, grueling struggle to make weight. The limit hinged on the ranking of the mount. The better the horse, the higher the weight he was assigned to carry, the heavier the jockey could be. But even the best horses seldom carried a rider who tipped the scales at more than 114 pounds. If a jockey wanted to ride with any kind of regularity, he had to whittle down to at least 110.
Weight can stop a freight train is an old racetrack expression. It's 2 or 3 pounds. It's over the assigned weight. Means that the horse, before he comes out of the gate, he's lost several lengths because he's got to tote that extra weight. Jockeys can't expect to make a living if they're going to eat well. As a matter of fact, some time ago I was talking to a very famous jockey and I said, what are you going to do when you retire? And he said, eat lunch.
The thermometer reads 140, but Billy Passmore lies under a blanket. Too much breakfast. And Bobby Stevenson is compensating for a couple of hamburgers he just couldn't resist.
George Wolfe weighed in at 115 pounds, 5 less than the recently crowned Miss America, but hefty by turf standards. While lighter jockeys rode more than 1,000 races a year, Wolfe averaged fewer than 200. But his winning average was so high that he still ranked among the best money riders in the country.